My best friend lied about needing money for cancer treatment, used it for a luxury vacation with her boyfriend, and now she has the nerve to call me selfish for wanting it back. I never thought I'd see the day when my best friend, someone I trusted with my life, would betray me in the most despicable way possible. Sarah, 28F, had been my rock since college, the one person who knew all my secrets, my fears, and my dreams. We'd been through everything together, from sleepless study nights to heartbreaks and celebrations. So, when she called me up one evening, her voice trembling as she told me about a health scare, I didn't hesitate. She told me she needed money, thousands of dollars, to cover medical bills that her insurance wouldn't touch. It sounded terrifying. She told me she'd found a lump, and they were running tests to see if it was cancerous. The hospital bills were piling up, she said, and she was afraid that if she didn't act fast, things would get even worse. I could feel the fear in her voice, and it broke my heart. I didn't have much saved up, but I couldn't just sit back and let my best friend suffer. After all, isn't that what friends are for? To help when things get rough. I wired her $5,000 the very next day. Weeks went by, and I checked in on her regularly, always asking about her health. Each time, she'd tell me the tests were still ongoing, that she was waiting on results, or that she was visiting a specialist. She never wanted to meet up, which I chalked up to her being exhausted and stressed. I didn't question her story. Why would I? She was Sarah, my best friend, practically family. But then I started seeing photos pop up on social media that didn't make any sense. At first, it was just one photo, a beach shot. A mutual friend had tagged her in it, and I thought it was strange. Why would Sarah be at the beach when she was supposedly sick and dealing with all these medical appointments? When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, saying she just needed a break to clear her head, that a quick trip to the beach was her way of coping with the stress. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But then, the photos kept coming. It wasn't just the beach anymore. There were pictures of her at fancy restaurants, a spa, and even a resort in the Caribbean. Each one felt like a slap in the face. I kept wondering where she was getting the money for all these luxuries. She wasn't working. She told me as much when she explained why she needed help paying her bills. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. I decided to confront her. When I called her, she sounded happy, almost carefree, which only fueled my anger. I asked her point blank where she was getting the money for these vacations and fancy outings. She hesitated for a moment, and then, in the most casual tone, she said, "Oh, my new boyfriend is covering it." I felt my blood boil. This was the first I'd heard of a boyfriend, and I knew she wasn't being truthful. Something inside me snapped, and I demanded she tell me what was really going on. That's when she laughed. She actually laughed as if I'd just told a joke. "Come on," she said. "You're really gonna lecture me? It's not like you couldn't afford it. Besides, you're single. You have no idea what it's like trying to impress someone." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe the person I thought I knew could be this cruel. I reminded her that she told me she needed the money for medical bills, not to go off gallivanting with some guy. She rolled her eyes and brushed me off. "Don't be so dramatic," she said, her tone laced with sarcasm. "I needed a break. Life's hard, and I knew you'd help me out. It's not like you don't blow money on useless stuff." Her words stung, but what hurt more was the realization that she'd never been in any danger, never needed my help. I demanded she pay me back, but she just laughed again. "Pay you back? With what money? Look, if you're gonna be so selfish about it, maybe we shouldn't even be friends." My heart pounded. I couldn't believe this was happening. My best friend was throwing me away like trash. I hung up feeling a mix of rage and betrayal that I'd never experienced before. I paced my apartment, replaying our conversation in my head, trying to make sense of it all. How could she manipulate me like that? How could she lie about something so serious? I decided to do something I never thought I'd have to do. I reached out to some mutual friends, explaining the situation and asking if they'd known anything about her supposed health scare. One by one, they told me they hadn't heard a thing. In fact, a few of them had seen her with this new guy, living it up. Feeling even more betrayed, I scrolled through her social media profiles, piecing together her adventures with her new boyfriend. The photos painted a clear picture. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment fling. She'd been with him for months, all while claiming to need my financial help. My anger turned into a need for justice. I couldn't just let this go. I reached out to her family, hoping they might convince her to repay me, but they were just as shocked as I was. Her mother apologized profusely, but Sarah never returned my calls or texts after that. She ghosted me, cutting me off completely. Days turned into weeks, and every time I thought about it, I felt sick. I'd been conned by my own best friend, and now I was left picking up the pieces. But then, I had an idea. I knew things about Sarah, things she wouldn't want anyone else to know. I debated with myself, wondering if I should stoop to her level, but the desire for revenge was too strong. I started leaking little bits of information to our mutual friends, details about her manipulative tendencies, the lies she'd told in the past. Word spread fast, and soon enough, people were questioning their friendships with her too. Sarah didn't stay silent for long. She called me one night, furious. "What the f*** is wrong with you?" she screamed. "Why are you spreading lies about me?" I calmly reminded her that she'd lied to me first, that she used me. "Oh, grow up," she sneered. "Everyone lies. You think you're some kind of saint. You're just bitter because I found someone, and you're still alone." Her words cut deep, but I wasn't about to let her win. I told her I was done, that I wanted my money back, or I'd keep telling everyone the truth about what she'd done. She laughed, her voice dripping with malice. "Go ahead. See if I care. You can't hurt me. I've moved on, and I'm living my best life. You're just sad and lonely." The anger in me boiled over. I told her I'd take her to small claims court if I had to. She didn't think I'd follow through, but she underestimated how much she'd pushed me. I gathered every bit of evidence I had: bank transfers, text messages, and even screenshots of her social media posts. I filed the paperwork, and soon enough, she was served. She couldn't ignore me anymore. She'd have to face the consequences. The court date arrived, and Sarah showed up with her new boyfriend, both of them looking smug. She tried to paint me as a bitter, obsessed friend who couldn't let go. But I presented my case with all the evidence I had, laying it out for the judge. Sarah's smirk faded as the truth came to light, and for once, she looked genuinely afraid. Her boyfriend seemed uncomfortable too, especially when he realized she used my money for their vacations. The judge listened carefully, and when it was over, he ruled in my favor. Sarah was ordered to repay every cent. Sarah stormed out of the courtroom, fuming, but I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I thought that would be the end of it, that she'd pay me back, and we'd go our separate ways. But I underestimated her vindictiveness. She started a smear campaign against me, telling everyone who would listen that I was a liar, that I'd fabricated the whole story out of jealousy. I lost friends over it, people who believed her version without even hearing mine. It was like watching my entire social circle crumble, all because of one person's lies. But I wasn't going to give up that easily. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I started documenting everything she said, every lie she spread, every message she sent to mutual friends. I reached out to the people who distanced themselves from me, calmly explaining my side of the story. Some of them were willing to listen, others brushed me off, but I knew I had to fight to clear my name. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about reclaiming my reputation. As I pieced together more evidence, I realized just how deep Sarah's deception went. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd been manipulating everyone around her. Then, one day, I received a message from someone unexpected. Sarah's ex, Jake, 30M. We met a few times during their relationship, but I hadn't spoken to him in years. He told me he'd heard about what happened and wanted to meet up. Curious, I agreed. Over coffee, he revealed things about Sarah that sent chills down my spine. She'd done the same thing to him, claiming she needed money for family emergencies, only to spend it on luxury items and vacations. He'd never confronted her, thinking it was too messy to deal with, but now he wanted to help me take her down. Together, we began digging deeper into her past, reaching out to people she'd hurt and gathering their stories. It turned out Sarah had a long history of using people, lying, and manipulating them to get what she wanted. I couldn't believe how blind I'd been, how many red flags I'd ignored. We found out that she'd even been arrested once for fraud but had managed to keep it quiet. Armed with this new information, Jake and I decided to make a public post, sharing the truth about her. It was a risk, but we were tired of watching her get away with it. The post went viral within hours. People from all over started commenting, sharing their own horror stories about Sarah. Former friends, coworkers, even family members came forward with tales of betrayal, theft, and lies. It was like a dam had broken, and everything she tried to keep hidden was flooding out for the world to see. Sarah tried to retaliate, claiming we were spreading lies, but the evidence was overwhelming. Screenshots, messages, bank statements, all of it laid bare for anyone who wanted to see. Her life started unraveling before my eyes, and for the first time, I felt like I was finally getting justice. But Sarah wasn't done. She managed to track down where I worked and began harassing me there, sending emails to my boss, making false claims about my character. She called in anonymous tips, trying to get me fired. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I spoke to my boss and explained everything, showing them the proof of what she'd done to me. Thankfully, they believed me and assured me they wouldn't be swayed by her tactics. But the stress was taking its toll, and I started feeling like maybe I'd never be free of her. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Sarah escalated. She showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door, screaming obscenities. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, she'd already left. They advised me to get a restraining order, and I did. I thought it would keep her away, but it only seemed to make her angrier. She began showing up outside my work, following me to the grocery store, sending me threatening messages from unknown numbers. I felt like I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for her to strike again. It was exhausting. Eventually, I realized that I couldn't keep living like this. I started documenting everything, preparing to take legal action against her for harassment. With Jake's help, I compiled everything we had on her, the fraud, the lies, the harassment. I was building a case, but it was slow going. Every time I thought I was making progress, she'd find a way to slip through the cracks. It felt like a never-ending battle, but I was determined to see it through. I knew that if I didn't, she'd just keep doing this to other people, ruining lives and leaving chaos in her wake. After weeks of collecting evidence, I finally had enough to file a lawsuit for harassment and damages. It felt surreal standing in court again, but this time I wasn't alone. Jake sat beside me along with a few of the other people she'd wronged. We presented our case, detailing everything Sarah had done over the years. Her manipulation, her deceit, her harassment, it all came spilling out. I could see her squirming, her face pale as the judge listened to our stories. This time, there was no smirk, no sarcasm. She was finally facing the consequences of her actions, and it was satisfying to watch. The judge ruled in our favor, issuing a restraining order and ordering Sarah to pay restitution to each of us. She drained my savings, but seeing her brought to justice felt like some kind of redemption. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace. I thought it was over, that I could finally move on. But Sarah, true to form, couldn't let go. She started a new social media account where she ranted about me, claiming I'd ruined her life. Her followers dwindled, and most people saw through her lies, but she managed to keep a small, loyal group who believed every word. One night, I received a message from one of her followers. They warned me that Sarah was planning something big. They didn't know the details, but they'd overheard her talking about how she was going to get even. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I tried to brush it off. I told myself she was just bluffing, that there was nothing more she could do. But a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that she was truly unhinged. I began taking extra precautions, checking my locks twice, avoiding going out alone. The fear started creeping back, and I hated it. A week later, I woke up to find my car vandalized. The tires were slashed, the windows smashed, and the words liar and thief spray painted across the side. I knew it was her, even though I had no proof. I filed a police report, but without witnesses, there was little they could do. My frustration mounted, but I refused to let her win. I bought a security camera and set it up outside my apartment. I was determined to catch her in the act if she tried something again. I was living in a constant state of alert, but I wasn't going to back down. Then, the messages started. Late at night, my phone would buzz with anonymous texts, all filled with threats and insults. I knew it was her, but she was careful, never using her real number. Each message was more vicious than the last, filled with promises of revenge. I saved every single one, adding them to my growing pile of evidence. I'd taken out another restraining order, but it felt like a flimsy shield against her relentless attacks. My friends urged me to move, to leave the city, and start fresh somewhere else. I considered it, but part of me wanted to see this through. One evening, I came home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My heart raced as I stepped inside, calling out, but there was no response. I carefully checked each room, finding no one, but everything felt wrong. My belongings had been rifled through, and my personal documents were scattered across the floor. She'd been in my home. I felt violated, angry, and helpless all at once. I called the police, but there was no evidence linking it to her. I realized then that she was trying to scare me, to break me down piece by piece. I was caught in her game, and I didn't know how to escape. Desperate, I reached out to a private investigator, hoping they could help me put an end to this. I explained everything, showed them the evidence I'd collected, and they agreed to take on the case. They began tracking her movements, digging into her new life. I learned that Sarah was spiraling, losing friends, burning bridges, and clinging to the few people who hadn't yet seen through her lies. It was a small comfort, knowing that her world was falling apart, but it didn't stop the fear. Every night, I wondered what she'd do next, what lengths she'd go to in order to make me suffer. Then, one morning, the investigator called me with news. Sarah had been arrested. She'd been caught trying to break into another former friend's home, a final desperate act that sealed her fate. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, knowing she was finally facing the consequences of her actions. But it wasn't enough to erase the damage she'd done. I'd lost friends, money, and months of my life to her twisted game. I knew I'd never be the same, that her betrayal had left scars that would take years to heal. But at least for now, I was free. For a while, things were quiet. I started to rebuild my life, reconnecting with friends who distanced themselves during the chaos. Some apologized, admitting they'd believed Sarah's lies, but others remained wary, too caught up in the drama to fully trust me again. I couldn't blame them. The whole ordeal had left me questioning everyone around me, wondering who else might betray me. But I kept moving forward, determined not to let her destroy any more of my life. I threw myself into work, took up new hobbies, and tried to focus on the things that brought me peace. Slowly, I began to heal. Then, out of nowhere, I received a letter from Sarah. She'd managed to find my address, even though I'd moved to a new apartment. My hands trembled as I opened it, wondering what twisted message she had for me this time. But the letter wasn't angry. It was almost pathetic. She begged me to drop the charges, claiming that she'd learned her lesson, that she just wanted a fresh start. She even tried to guilt-trip me, saying that I'd ruined her life, that I was the reason she'd lost everything. I stared at the letter, feeling a strange mix of pity and disgust. Despite everything, a part of me felt sorry for her. She was a broken person, driven by jealousy and greed, unable to face the consequences of her own actions. But I knew better than to fall for her manipulation again. I tore up the letter and threw it away, refusing to let her words get under my skin. I was done with her games, done with her lies. I'd let her take enough from me, and I wasn't about to give her any more power over my life. I blocked any new numbers she might try to contact me with and moved on. A few months passed, and I finally started to feel like myself again. I met new people, made new friends, and began to trust again. It wasn't easy, but I refused to let Sarah's betrayal define me. I knew I'd always carried the scars of what she'd done, but I was determined to find happiness in spite of it. Then, one day, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a video, a recording of Sarah, sitting in a dingy room, looking haggard and defeated. She was crying, rambling about how she'd lost everything, blaming me for her misery. I deleted the message without a second thought. But the video haunted me. No matter how much I wanted to forget, she had a way of worming back into my thoughts, like a stain I couldn't scrub away. I realized that I might never truly be free of her. She'd left a mark on my life that time alone couldn't erase. I started seeing a therapist, hoping to work through the lingering trauma, to find a way to let go of the resentment. It was a slow process, but each session helped me peel back the layers of pain she caused. I began to understand that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about finding peace with what happened. One day, I learned that Sarah had left town. She'd moved to a different city, hoping for a fresh start. Part of me was relieved, glad that she was finally out of my life, but another part of me worried for the people she might hurt next. I knew I couldn't warn everyone, couldn't protect the world from her lies, but I hoped that maybe, just maybe, she'd learn something from all this. Deep down, though, I doubted it. People like Sarah didn't change. They just found new victims, new ways to manipulate and destroy. I only hoped she'd leave me out of it for good. Months turned into years, and the memory of Sarah became a distant shadow. I built a life I was proud of, one that was free from her toxic influence. Occasionally, I'd hear a whisper about her, some rumor that she was back to her old tricks, but I paid it no mind. She was no longer my concern. I'd done everything I could to protect myself, to reclaim my life. The scars remained, a reminder of the betrayal I'd endured, but they no longer defined me. I was stronger now, wiser, and I knew I'd never let anyone like her into my life again. Then, one night, as I was scrolling through social media, I saw a news article. Sarah had been arrested in her new city, caught in a massive fraud scheme that had affected dozens of people. I felt a strange sense of vindication, knowing that karma had finally caught up with her. She was facing serious charges, ones that would likely put her behind bars for a long time. I couldn't help but smile, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. She was finally paying for her actions, finally facing the consequences she tried so hard to avoid. It was a bittersweet victory, but a victory nonetheless. As I read through the article, I felt a sense of closure that I hadn't realized I needed. Sarah's story was ending, and I was free to move forward without looking over my shoulder. I reached out to Jake and some of the others she'd wronged, sharing the news. We all felt a collective relief, a sense that justice had been served. Sarah's reign of manipulation and deceit was over, and while it couldn't undo the damage she caused, it gave us a sense of peace. We could finally breathe, knowing that she wouldn't hurt anyone else. Not for a long time, at least. I closed my laptop, feeling lighter than I had in years. I knew there would always be people like Sarah in the world, people who thrived on lies and manipulation. But I also knew that I had the strength to face them, to protect myself from their poison. I'd been through hell and back, but I'd come out the other side, scared but unbroken. Sarah had tried to destroy me, but in the end, I was the one who'd won. She was gone, locked away, and I was free. Free to live my life on my own terms, without fear, without regret.